This special meeting of the Montgomery County Board of Supervisors on April 21st to order. We will open with a moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance led by our County Administrator, Angie Hill.
Please stand as you're able for a moment of silence, and then I will lead us in the pledge. Let us pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Angie. We're going to open this meeting tonight with public address, and we do have a couple of people that have signed up in advance for public address, and so I'm going to call those names first, but if anybody else in the audience does want to come forward and speak during public address, you will have 4 minutes. We ask that you state your name and address. And the first person that signed up for public address this evening, and I'll give Jen just a minute, we're going to put the rules for public address on the screens around the room. The first person that signed up for public address this evening is Sarah Jacob, and following Sarah, we will have Derek Roundtree.
I haven't been here for a while, so I'll do my best.
Well, welcome. We're glad you're here.
I'm Sarah Jacob. I live at 2605 Warm Hearth Drive, Blacksburg, in District E. Okay? In these uncertain financial times, I listened to the radio as I came over. There's no better place to invest than in our future. Our future is our children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. In addition, when we invest in schools, we are getting a big bargain. All the time teachers put in after school, night, weekends, that we get pretty much for free. So I want to support the 1 cent per $100 assessed value tax increase. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jen's going to move the light.
Okay. Oh, my apologies. I should have caught that wasn't up there. Dr. Roundtree, welcome.
Thank you. Derek Roundtree, 2737 Old Fort Road, Prices Fork, Virginia. Chair DeMotts, Ms. Hills, Supervisors. Good evening, and I'll keep it short tonight. Thank you for your work on the proposed budget and setting of an advertised tax rate to more fully support our schools. I want to express my support for the 1 cent rate increase in support of our special education, teacher retention, and student nutrition. And thank you all for your work towards advancing the prosperity of Montgomery County students and the broader community at whole. Thank you.
Thank you. And that concludes the people that had signed up, but anybody else can come forward. Welcome.
Good evening. Hope you guys are doing well. Bob Beard. I live here in Christiansburg. I got 3 bets going on. I'm gonna bet tonight that you guys don't pass the 1 cent tax increase because you guys don't want to have a tax increase 3 years in a row. So I'm betting tonight that you vote no for that. Because I bet tomorrow night that the school board is going to vote yes to keep DEI and take the chance of losing $5.5 million. So that means next year, you guys will have to raise your taxes. My third bet is next year, you guys have to raise your taxes 3 to 5 cents to offset the $5.5 million they're losing from DEI. So that's all I have to say. So that's that. And I want Mary, I hope you like my T-shirt. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to come forward during public comment? Good evening. Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Anna Vajayan, and I live in District A. I have a couple of pieces of information for you today. First, I'd like to explain the math I presented in the April 10th public hearing. I do have a PhD in math, so I hope that you'll trust that my calculations are correct. I said that even if the tax increase goes through, that will mean that over the past 6 years, tax increases will have been just 1.4% per year on average, and that's taking into account the increased assessment values. A subsequent speaker questioned my figure. She gave an example of a home purchased in 2022 for which taxes would go up from $1,885 in 2022 to $2,576 in 2025. That's a total tax increase of $691. What she is describing is a tax increase of 36.7%, which is much, much higher than the average percentage tax increase over Montgomery County. Her example property must have experienced a jump in assessment value that was much greater than the average. If that home's assessment had increased by the average amount, its taxes would go up by just $162, which is not an excessive increase over 6 years. And so that's going to be true for the average property in Montgomery County. I'm going to look now at the average tax increase over the past few years. Starting in 2019, taxes stayed at exactly the same level for 4 consecutive years, on average. When the new assessments came out in 2023, you set the tax rate such that the same amount of money was collected on existing property, on average, as in the previous year. Because of this, for an average property, last year's tax increase was the first tax increase over the past 6 years. If the 1 cent increase also passes this year, the total tax increase over the past 6 years will be the increase from 70 to 76 cents per $100, which is an increase of 8.6%. And the average tax increase per year over the past 6 years would work out to be 1.4% per year, since you have to multiply, if you work it out, 1.014 to the sixth would bring you up to the 8.6% increase total over the 6 years. Second, I'd like to point out that there's widespread support within Montgomery County for increased school funding. Of the recorded speakers at the tax rate hearing, 13 supported the tax increase, while only 9 did not. And it wasn't just the Blacksburg crowd in support. If you counted only non-Blacksburg speakers, the exact same number, 7, spoke on each side. And among those who opposed the tax increase, 3 specifically expressed that they supported increased funding for school needs. They just wanted you to cut spending elsewhere in your budget rather than increasing taxes. In summary, 16 speakers supported increased school funding, only 6 did not. Overwhelmingly, Montgomery County residents support raising teacher pay, feeding our students, and better services for students with disabilities. These are the items that will need to be cut if you do not allocate more money to the schools. If you cannot find that money elsewhere in your budget, I urge you to approve the 1 cent tax increase and allocate that money to the schools. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We are still in public address. If anybody else in the room would like to come forward and address the board. Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Carola Haas from Reiner. I would just like to reiterate my desire to increase the tax at the 1 cent rate. I feel like, yes, budgets are tight, but again, our youth are our future. Our schools have expressed clear needs for those funds. And again, the people who would be most burdened by a property tax increase tend to be the people with the most wealth. As I wrote in my note today, I heard that, at the last meeting, there were some concerns from people who, would struggle to pay that but did not qualify for the tax relief that the county has. And so I would urge you to go ahead and vote for this tax increase, which again is going to be a minimal cost at this time for everybody, but to please look into programs that would help broaden that tax relief if it's needed. And I know, again, there's tax relief for seniors and disabled citizens, but there's also the assessments. And I know the last time around, Supervisor King mentioned a really drastic increase in in assessments for some properties that he was familiar with. And that happened to us too. And I had the luxury of having a job where I could take off during the day and come to Christiansburg. I had a vehicle that worked. I could take off during the day. I could schedule a meeting with the assessors and say, when you called my place waterfront property because there's a mud hole that the cattle water in, like, I don't think that was fair. And they had doubled the value of my assessment because the one guy, a young guy who came, saw the little stream running through and thought it was doubled. And so I was able to get mine reduced, but then I later realized my elderly neighbor, whose cows water in the same stream, her husband with dementia, you know, she was home with him full time. She did not have the opportunity to go home and meet with the assessor, and they suffered the burden of that tax increase. And I have felt regretful that I didn't think of asking her if I could have took her with me to the appointment or to sat with her husband while she went. And so I recognize that there is a real need, and I would ask this board to consider ways that when we do a reappraisal if people's taxes are going up quite a lot, to make sure that we reach out into the districts and not expect people to come to Christiansburg, not expect to take off during the workday, but we make time to help people understand that they do have those options if they think they've got an unfair assessment, which we know can happen. There's different reasons why things might seem more valuable to a young guy who's doing his first job coming from out of the area. So I would ask you to consider those ways to help our citizens who may need the help, but to help all of our youth and all of our community in an important way by raising the tax right now and putting that money towards the schools. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to come forward to address the board during public address? Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening. I am Martha Ann Stallings in District A in Blacksburg. And just very briefly, I want to once again thank you for your service. I know all of these meetings are asking a lot, but we appreciate that opportunity. I want to thank you for supporting the ACE program that I'm a part of, and I want you to consider the 1% increase to support our schools. I know for a fact many people move to this community because of our schools, and I met someone the other day who moved here to help with her parents who are getting elderly, and she took a major cut in pay, but she came because she needed to be here. And I just hope that we can consider supporting the schools so that people come here because they want to and because we pay them appropriately. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, would anybody else like to come forward for a public address? Seeing nobody come forward, I'm going to close public address. The next item on our agenda is a work session on the fiscal year 25-26 budget. Is there a motion to go into work session?
So moved.
Second. Madam Clerk, if you'll call the roll, please.
Mr. Grafsky?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Fidzikowski?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Mr. Kitts?
Aye.
Ms. Bone?
Aye.
Chair DeMotts?
Aye.
7 ayes.
Okay, we are in work session. We do not have a presentation this evening in work session, but I'll kick it to Angie and see if you have anything just to say to start us off. I think this is mainly to see if anybody has any more questions.
Right. We don't have any updates for you, but if you have any questions, Mark is here. We can try to answer those, and then if you want to have your time to discuss.
Okay, well, we'll start with questions. Do we have any questions from this side of the room? Okay. Do we have any questions over here? Supervisor Kitts.
Thank you. So I have a question. So when the schools put in their initial budget request, what was that and when was that?
The superintendent submitted his statement of needs in January, early January, I think around the 8th. And then the school board, I kind of kept a running summary of this in my handy book that I carry around with me. The school board made revisions to that periodically from, it was actually January the 7th through March the 18th. His initial statement of needs was $4.7 million, and the final statement of need was, or the school board recommendation was $5.65 million from the county.
So when we originally did the budget and you worked everything up and we started playing around with this, where were we at as far as the superintendent's request?
As far as
As
funding
me-
is
Meaning
concerned,
what he requested as needs.
and the amount we provided.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you know in your head, Mark? I can tell you in just a second.
I just want to make sure that everybody knows that when the superintendent submitted his needs, that our budget was created around that need, and that we made sure that we met the needs that he asked for.
$3.1 million is how much we added.
Okay.
What?
4.7.
So when we set up to fund what the superintendent asked for. We were within how much of what he asked?
Right.
So, yeah, and then the rest came from,
That's compared to what he asked for. By the time we got the request and submitted it to you, the school board had made revisions. So in the proposed budget, the request from schools was 5.9 million at that point. But based on what he submitted as his statement of need, we funded 3.1.
okay.
Does that
Because-
answer your question?
Yeah, because I just want to add clarity to a point that we were meeting the superintendent's needs, that the additional request prerogative of the school board was additional above and beyond, and that the original budget was set up with the tax rate where it was at the ability to fund the schools at what the superintendent believed was the appropriate amount.
That's, yeah,
But it didn't. He asked for what, and we had what?
4.7 and then 3.6.
Okay,
1.
3.1.
3.1, excuse
thank
me.
you.
So
Divided by 4.
she's over here doing that. Better than me. I got Anthony over there.
That's 66%, 2/3. We
So-
funded it 2/3.
So we funded but where we normally do, the 2/3 of the ability to fund what he's asking for. So I'm just trying to figure out the breakdown of, because people keep saying, and I can honestly sit here and say that I can count on one hand how many people from my district had said anything, that we're meeting the needs of the schools, the school board, again, their prerogative, to add those things that they want to add. But we were meeting that need before that, and we're not cutting anything. We provided the funding that was requested and are not cutting anything. The original submission, everything else was, well, I'm trying to think of the right word, an additional request above and beyond the initial
Statement of need.
statement of need.
And some of our neighboring jurisdictions have had cuts, real cuts, that reduced the current amount of funding that they're providing to the schools. We are not doing that. We're including 3.1 in the proposed budget, and if you add 1 cent to that, it's about $1.24 million more.
Which is still a $6 million increase from the 2024 budget. 6.1,
Right.
6 point something, like right around there. Okay. Because I just wanted to add a little clarity to that, because it keeps coming up. We're cutting this, we're cutting that. We're not. We provide the check more or less, and the school board spends it how it wants to, their prerogative. So I just wanted to make sure that gets out there. But thank you.
But we've never fully funded a request from the school, is the bottom line, right? That anybody knows of. Mary.
That's
would-
correct.
Mary would remember. So,
No, we've never done that.
yeah, it's the same thing every year. We've never fully funded their statement of need, let alone what the school board finally approves.
I'm gonna finish with questions, and that's a good discussion topic. When we come back to it, I'll come right to you for that discussion. But do we have any other questions? Supervisor King?
Last year on the school's budget, new money they got was almost $12 million. Is that
Total
correct?
new.
11. So without a tax increase this year, they will receive $6 million, a little over $6 million more dollars, right?
Right.
So that's $18 million in 2 years.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Did you have questions? Yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned, Angie, that in one of the proposals that it got up, the highest ask was 5.3 million. I thought
There
I
was
saw
a point that was 7.5. The 5 million was when it came to the proposed budget that we presented to you, but there was one point when it was 7.7 was the highest point.
7.7.
That was at the end of January, yes.
Okay, that's what I thought. Thank you.
Okay. Supervisor Bone, did you have any questions?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Just so that we can make sure everybody's on the same page. Tell me where I'm wrong. Okay. Like our esteemed professor of mathematics, if she's still here, there she is, of my district, went back to 6 years ago, and we had 0 tax increase up until last year, and now this year. Every year in those 6 years, we gave the schools more money than the previous year.
Right.
Just pretty much probably like every other year except for maybe 2009. Who knows? I can't, I wouldn't know. But, so that's a given. We always, is this true? Do we always do our budget based on the superintendent's need versus waiting until the school board's approved budget comes to us?
It depends on the timing of that. Last year, I think that due to the timing of when we presented the budget, when I presented the budget to you and when we received the budget from the school board, I had already prepared my proposed budget, so it was not based on the school board's request. It was based solely on the superintendent's statement of need. Mm-hmm. I can't speak to prior years. It varies based on the timing.
So the one chart that was given to us at some point in time, which was a chart from the county that said, this is how much funding we've given the schools every year. I'm sure it was in the budget, couldn't tell you the page number, but you gave us a separate piece of paper. I figured out the average, and it was somewhere around 3 to 4% every year.
The bar chart?
Yeah.
Do you want to know what that percentage is over the time period?
No. Well,
Okay.
I mean, if you think I'm far off.
Right. No, I think you're on track.
Whether it was $12 million last year, or, which it was, and $6 million this year, it averages out to something like 3 to 4%, 3 to 5% actually. So, why again was last year 12 million?
They received a significant increase in state funding and a significant increase from the county as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And if we approve the 1 cent, which is equivalent to 1.24 million, add it to the 3.1, that'll be 4.3 plus a little bit, which gets us to the 6 million. Is that correct?
I'm looking at Mark.
Where's the 6 million come from?
The rest of the increase comes from the state.
Right, okay.
$6 million is coming from the state. Go ahead.
All right, county money was $2,750,000. Then $124,000 went to school capital for a total of $2.9 million. In the original budget, there was $3.3 million in state monies. That gets you to $6 million. Then in addition to that, there was
924.
I can't remember the number right now off the top of my head.
This is last year.
No.
This is current.
This year, okay.
Current. So the $6 million is a combination of $2,750,000, then $3,303,896. That gets you a total of $6,053,896.
Thanks.
And if this 1 penny is added, It's another 1.24.
That's correct.
Okay. That's all. I just wanted to make sure I was tracking the math. Thank you.
Okay, and then did that spark any more questions from anybody else? And then I'm going to go back to you for the discussion if you had anything else that you wanted to, okay. Does anybody else have any items of discussion? Supervisor King?
Thank you. With money without a tax increase, each one of us got emails. There's certain things that each one of them asked for. One of them was pay increase for employees for the school system. Another one was school security officers. The other one was school lunch and breakfast. Without the tax increase, the 3% pay increase is a little over $4 million. Without a tax increase, the school security officer is $280,000. To finish off the school lunch and breakfast, $1.237 million. Plus, to add in there, to bring the school's minimum wage to $16 an hour, $150,000. That leaves right at $300,000 for the schools to use for the teachers that they want, the special ed teachers, without a tax increase. On the county's site, you can look this one up. And before I get started, no, it's not my house. In 22, the house was appraised at $303,400. When we done reassessment, it went to $422,500. That's right at 39% increase. Taxes went from $2,700.26 to $2,957.50. That's 9.5% increase. If this tax increase goes through tonight, this one family in 3 years will be paying almost $450 more a year for taxes. And this is not the only one. You can get on the county website and you can find several others. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else have anything that they'd like to add for discussion in work session? Go right ahead, Vice Chair Fichkowski.
Of course, everybody's covered most of it. I think one of the issues, and something that Supervisor Bowen brought up about we've never funded them entirely. I'm not really sure if that's even possible, because if you start out for an ask of 4.7 and you get up as high as 7.7 after a record amount of money from last year, 12 million followed by 7.7 million. I can't see that, and everything would require a tax increase. I mean, all of it would. We received a lot of emails, a lot more than who showed up here and spoke. And the overwhelming majority were Blacksburg citizens. And they were all in favor of the tax increase. A few of them wanted us to increase it 3 cents. When all the when all the needs are met, as Supervisor King pointed out, this is nothing but a waste, and shouldn't be done. If you think that this is the last time we've heard of a 1 cent increase, I think we're fooling ourselves, because we've kind of downplayed it. It's only $2.50 a month on your mortgage for a $300,000 home. Well, I guess next year it'll be only $3 a month on your mortgage. And the year after that, maybe it'll be 350. So what, is it the intention of this board to go ahead and raise it 1 cent every year because it amounts to nothing? After 4 years, that's 4 cents. You add that to the 5 cents from last year, that's a spread of 9 cents in, what, 5 years? I mean, that's a pretty good clip. A lot of these programs that were added don't really affect students. Supervisor King spoke about the pay raise. That was never in question. That teachers were always going to get their pay raise, and all the other employees. But when you start adding things like salary scale adjustment for teachers, that's what it started out. Then it became salary scale adjustment for teachers and everybody else. Now you're looking at $1 million increase. When you're asking for a dual language program, $250,000. And I'm not even sure where that would be taught. I seriously doubt that would be taught in all the schools. But the free meals are the ones that I have the biggest problem with. I've never heard anybody give any evidence that there was a need for that until today, when a teacher sent an email out saying that she was paying for a student. Well, the only other people I've heard from, and again, in other emails, people that identified themselves as a teacher or a substitute teacher, said they don't see kids go hungry. They all get taken care of, that nobody goes hungry. And I think that's something I've heard from administration also. 1.2 million to be added when you already have 6 schools that are receiving free lunches. Again, it doesn't make any sense. It just looks to me like, hey, we think we can get this, we think we can get the board to pass this, so we're just going to go ahead and put a big wish list on there. Because the only things that really affect students were the special ed teachers and the dual language program, which, again, I don't know where that would start or where that would be at $250,000. The other things don't. A salary scale adjustment, that doesn't affect students. Increasing the minimum wage to $16 per hour, all that's doing is stealing our employees to have them go over to the school side. So these things and everything else that's been mentioned is a good reason for us not to pursue a tax increase. And I hope that's part of the budget, because I think we're lumping everything together. Thank you.
Okay. Does anybody over on this side have anything?
I would just like to say that everything affects students, and especially when you're talking about personnel and you're talking about salaries and you're talking about possibly compressing the salary schedule. All those things come into play when you're trying to attract and retain folks because you want the best, okay? And so when you say it doesn't affect students, it really does affect students. Maybe not in the way that, you know, you might be seeing, but as someone that taught in the schools for a long time, I can tell you that it does affect students. So one thing that I know that it's been a problem about the teacher salary scales, about all this, it's been a problem for a long time, because the deal was, well, just add a year and, you know, that will take care of it. Well, it doesn't take care of it. And for those of you that are new on the board, on the county level, what we do we do a comp plan study, and we adjust our salary scales for county employees. We do it over time. It's not like, okay, we're going to do this, but we've had to put money into it to do it. Why did we do that? It was because we wanted to have the best county employees to meet the needs of our citizens and their services. So I think you sort of have to look, when you're thinking it might not affect kids in the school system, sort of look at the county side, where we had to look at, hey, we want to affect customer service for our citizens. So it's sort of like that.
You may.
I would agree with you that it does probably more for recruitment than it does for anything. But it wasn't, and maybe somebody can remember, 6 years ago, we were told we have to have 30 steps because people are reaching top pay too quickly, and then they don't get anything after that. So I don't know. To me, it's a non-argument, and I still don't believe it affects students. But it would affect recruiting, I think.
And retention.
Supervisor Bone, did you have something to add?
Sure. A penny increase every year, you said would amount to nothing, and I disagree with you. I think it's a big deal to increase taxes. You know, the teachers getting a pay raise, like you said, was never in question because in order for them to get that raise, we have to match dollar for dollar from the state. So we're not going to give free money away. You know, we are going to allot that 3%. I don't know. Can we ask Dr. Braden to answer a question, or is that not allowed at this time?
I think we certainly can ask Dr. Bragan, and I know he's got some other folks there with him that might be able to answer if he cannot. Come on up to the mic, sir, please. Thank you for being here this evening, just so we could do this very thing.
Could you talk about the dual language program, where it will be and who it will serve?
Sure. The dual language immersion program will be at Price's Fork Elementary School. And right now that is allocated only for kindergarten. There'll be 2 kindergarten sections that will be spoken in Spanish and 2 will be spoken in English.
And how many students will that help?
We're looking at having at least 20 students in each of those kindergarten classes. That would be 40 overall. We picked that school because that has our largest population of multiple language learners.
Switching gears to no one goes hungry. Do you have proof that students go hungry in our schools?
I don't know if I could come up with you with some kind of proof or numbers or things like that. I know there's anecdotal evidence that we do have a number of families that have food insecurity, which means they don't have regular meals all the time in their homes. So sometimes the only meals they get are when they are in school.
Mm-hmm. And the special ed teachers and that grouping of employees, could you explain what they're going to be doing, what they're doing, or all those extra employees in that realm will do?
The proposal for the additional 10 special ed teachers, is that what you're asking?
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're trying to provide a greater continuum of services for our children with special needs. We do a great job in the division, and it's been a push long before I got here for full inclusion, which means with children, regardless of what their disability would be, they would be educated in a general ed setting, which is great. It's a great model, and it's something we should aspire to do with all of our kids, but some of our students aren't meeting with success in that model. So we're going to provide some more options for those children to get some time out of the general ed setting with a special education teacher working on some specific skills that will help them to be more successful both academically and with life skills. And in order to do that, you need more teachers to pull them out of the class to do that. So those 10 teachers represent targeting the sections in middle school, because that's where our students struggle the most academically. And we envision that's what we would need in order to do that and to increase that continuum. We've also been cited by the federal government for not providing that continuum of services.
And then my last question is about the whole question about DEI, from the definition from the federal government and what they're doing away with and how you're responding to it so that you don't lose the $5+ million. How does that work?
We have to file a certification by Wednesday at 5 p.m. that says the school division does not discriminate in any way by race, color, creed, or anything like that, or promote people because of that. And our school board has asked us to wait until Wednesday to submit that. But as a practice, we do not do that.
Okay.
I don't know if that helps.
And you have a separate DEI program beyond that kind of report.
We have an Office of Equity that works on issues of equity and access for our children. Yes, we do.
And the federal government's not saying get rid of that.
It's saying right now, what it's saying us is get rid of programs that specifically target and teach DEI. We do not do that. Or programs that advance one child over another or staff member on the basis of race, and we do not do that either.
Thank you. That's all my questions.
Supervisor Kids, go ahead.
Like the shirt. Just got to throw that out
I
there.
apologize. It's
No,
a
I like
day
the
off
look.
for us here.
I like the look.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. So here's my question for you. There's a couple things. So in your original ask, you put in for the special education teachers and I believe the
504.
SSO in the original ask?
I didn't hear what you said. SSOs?
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
That was all in your original request.
Yes, sir.
So all that stuff was covered above. Okay, I just want to make sure that we got that clear because that's the things that always come up. This is going to get cut, that's going to get cut. I want to make sure that everybody knows that it was addressed in your original ask, that you put that forward and the county met that for what you needed for that.
Yes, that was in the original request, yes.
Okay, now, I got to ask this, and this is a very, very touchy subject with people, and I'm going to ask this. What did I get to look for? But just don't be scared. It's okay. So I was listening to the school board meeting the other day, and it was brought up about a possible closure, or looking at for a school in Blacksburg because of the readjustment of the population within Blacksburg and with the adding of schools or the refurbishment of schools, capacity would be increased in others. And I know this is a super touchy subject. This is not in my district as that part. I'm going to throw that way out there. And I have nothing to say about that at all, nor do I have a dog in that fight. Just want to make sure that's clear. I just want to know, it kind of hit me funny that it was asked, more money was asked, there was an add-on above and beyond your ask, and then they started talking about loss and readjustment of population, because a lot of it's moving over to Christiansburg, because of the issues with housing. I just wanted to hear a little bit of that, just because it seems kind of, and I know I put you on the spot on this one.
It's okay.
So,
I was thinking, should I really come tonight?
no,
No.
You're thinking about that again, aren't you? It's like,
No, I love to talk about our schools and whatever information I could share. We did a demographic study, I believe it's almost 2 years ago, on population growth and how it's going to impact us in our communities, and really looked at the schools hard in preparation for ultimately coming to with a capital improvement plan over the next 10 years, what we would need and what we would come to the Board of Supervisors and ask for. And the demographic study, despite a lot of the building that's going on now, the proposed project down in Charlottesville was not part of that, but it had our population being somewhat static, going down slightly and then increasing back up to where it was over the next 10 years. But it did indicate that none of our schools would be over capacity, which was good for us. We don't need to build any more capacity in any of our buildings. And not one of the schools would be overly burdened with new students where it would be a problem. So we don't foresee any schools needing to be added on, built upon. We do see there are some schools that need to be upgraded significantly. And the schools that we initially looked at were the 3 elementary schools in Blacksburg, Margaret Beeks Elementary School, Gilbert Lincoln Elementary School in Harding, as well as Montgomery Central and Charlesville Middle School, the oldest schools, probably most in need of TLC. At some point, somebody suggested, hey, why don't you see if the architect, if there's a plan where if we consolidate 1 or 2 of those, it would be more efficient, more cost-effective, would it make sense? The architect put a plan together and proposed one of those. Doesn't make sense fiscally, honestly, when we crunch the numbers, and it doesn't make sense educationally, so it's really not something that I would propose, or I believe any of the school board, at least the majority, would actually propose or move forward with. So once that got out in the ether, it became an issue, and I made a stupid comment or two at a meeting too that didn't help, and that's where we were. But at no point did anybody propose it. What was said was, hey, have the architect look at what would that look like. And even the numbers, when, if you looked at that document that were shared, the numbers didn't make sense either. It wasn't fiscally better to do it. It's not educationally better to do it. So, at some point, why would we even talk about it?
good answer. I appreciate that.
What's the truth?
No,
Supervisor?
I was just going to say, I'm going to redirect us back to the matter at hand. I know we have our joint meeting coming up in June where we will have a much more robust
It's the plan to have it
discussion
ready
on
by then, yes.
that and other capital needs.
you.
But okay. Does anybody else have any comments? Supervisor Biggs?
Yes, I had a question about the 10 special ed teachers, if you're able to get them, because I know they're hard to get to, but would that then take care of the problem you mentioned with the federal standard that you were trying to
Yes.
meet? Okay,
To provide a broader continuum of services for our children with special needs.
good. Thank you.
Let me ask one question just really quick. Could you touch on the 504 coordinators and where they are in that plan?
Yeah, we have a couple that we added this year. I believe it's 2, and we're adding 2 additional 504 coordinators for a total cost of $142,898. And that's, that would cover all the costs, right? Not salary, but benefits and all that cost would be associated with that as well. And one of the reasons is that task right now, this year, is falling on school counselors. And one of the rules for the Code of Virginia is that school counselors have to spend 80% of their time in direct contact counseling kids and providing those supports. And if they're going to be the 504 coordinators, they can't really do that. And we've had an increase in children that have the 504 combination plans because they need it, and they need those services. But somebody has to do that. And it had fallen on the school counselors. They're just not capable of doing that. Before that, we had teachers doing it, which was even worse because you're pulling teachers out of their classrooms to have the meetings, to coordinate with the parents, and to develop the plans when they're missing providing instruction for the kids. So that's our intent, why we want to do
Yeah.
it.
And I asked about that specifically because I've heard some feedback on that specific issue with the counselors being, it's a big burden that takes away from the time that they're able to interact with the kids.
100%.
So-
And our children now need more support than ever, unfortunately.
Vice Chair Fijikowski?
Do you currently have all your special ed teacher positions filled?
We do not, sir.
Do you think you're going to be able to find 10 more in addition to filling those?
I can't say that definitively we would, but I know we're going to try our best to do that. And if we can't, we can't. But if we allocate the resources and then that's what we need to meet our students' needs, I think we should do it. I do think some of the other proposals in there, like I know I don't want to cause another discussion, but about the salary guide adjustments and things that will help us get more people that would want to come here and maybe get people from other divisions. We need the positions, whether I can look you in the face, Mr. Fijikowski, and say, yes, we will get all those. That would be a lie. I don't know that. They're hard to find.
Yes, I think we've had that conversation before, and I'm sure it is. You had mentioned when we're talking about DEI issues that you have a department now. It's called Equity or Department.
Department of Equity and Inclusion, yes.
And you made the statement that the federal government is looking to see if you have preferences based on race or other issues, and you said you do not. Then why do you have the department?
What the department is, and I wasn't here when it was implemented, but it's also a conversation we're having with our school board on the change, what that department does on a regular basis. But the goal is to make sure all students have equal access to the best educational outcomes possible. That's not discriminating. That's making sure our students, maybe they're black and brown, maybe they're Latino, maybe they're children with special needs, have access to high caliber education and have an opportunity to have the same outcomes as everybody else. That's not discrimination. That's trying to work and make sure all of our kids have the supports they need to be successful. That's what that department is supposed to be doing.
What do the school counselors do? Don't they do the same thing?
School counselors do a lot. I mean, they do everything that we put on their plate. And as I said earlier, there's more and more things that come their way. And there's more and more children that are coming with significant needs that not only are they overburdened, but we also get resources from the New River Community Services. And it's just not enough, unfortunately.
Okay, and my last question has to do with what Supervisor Bowen asked you about the children and free meals and what have you. You said that a lot of kids come from families where they don't have the means, and so the only meals they get are at school. So are you telling us that those kids are getting fed?
We provide breakfast and lunch for all the kids that meet the criteria to get free and reduced lunch. And as you had mentioned, Mr. Fitchikowski, in the 6 schools that have community eligible programs, we provide it for all the children. They don't have to demonstrate need in those 6 buildings. We do that as best as we can.
So there are no kids going hungry then, if you're providing meals for them.
I can't say there are no kids going hungry because I don't know that for sure, but I know we have families that have food insecurity. And, you know, when we're out of school and things that kids suffer, that's why we try to provide them meals. In the summer, it's a problem. You know, I don't want to speak to all of you before we share with the school board, but we mentioned we're putting together a program to feed the children in the summer because a lot of those families in the summer when school's not in session don't have access.
Yeah, I'm sure you take care of them. Thank you.
Could I just add to that, remember our food insecurity, the last information we had was 13.5% in the county. So.
Okay, do we have any more questions for school staff? Oh, Supervisor King, I'm sorry.
Thank you for being here.
Sure.
Each one of us got an informational email Friday, and they was talking about DEI. The information that we got Friday was on people attending white privilege conferences. Is that part of that DEI, or what is the purpose for somebody attending this?
It's a great question. Is it part of the program? Is it part of their department per se? No. It was a training that for the last 2 years staff had asked to go to. It is called the White Privilege Conference, which I know on the surface, if you're a white person, you're immediately like, whoa, what is that talking about? What are they trying to say, right? The goal of it is for people to have safe spaces, to have those hard conversations about race. And it's not about saying, you know, white people are bad or have done things bad over time. It's about having the conversations and maybe having an understanding that all of us come to the table with some degree of bias, whatever that may be. It may be unconscious, it may be prevalent, it may be conscious. But if we don't talk about it and acknowledge it, we never get better. You know, I'm a white guy from New Jersey that moved down here 3 years ago. And people would ask me a question. Your ride must have been easy. You're a superintendent, you got all this stuff handed to you. You know, we were poor growing up with single mom living on welfare. But people make that assumption because I'm a white guy with gray hair that wears a suit, you had it easy, you had a nice life. That's kind of the things that we talk about. Those are unconscious biases that come to the table. And people have them on the other side too. You're a young child of color or you come from a different background or whatever that may be. So the idea is at these conferences to help people understand how do you talk about it and how do you move forward so that nobody gets treated unfairly in the classroom and no one is discriminated on based on race. That's the goal. I know it doesn't sound good because when you hear that, you're like, whoa, what does that mean?
Okay. Any more questions for school staff? Thank you both very much for coming tonight and for being able to answer
My
those
pleasure.
questions.
I apologize for my dress. Thank you.
I appreciate it. I just want you to know, I like it.
I like it.
I think you should more.
Okay, do we have any more items of discussion for our work session? I'm seeing no's, so can I have a motion to come out of work session?
Motion.
Second.
Okay, it's been motioned and seconded to come out of work session. Madam Clerk, if you'll call the roll, please.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Jakowski?
Aye.
Ms. King?
Aye.
Mr. Kitts?
Aye.
Ms. Bone?
Aye.
Mr. Grafsky?
Aye.
Chair DeMotts?
Aye.
7 ayes.
Okay, our first item of new business is to adopt a real estate tax rate and other property taxes. We advertised at the following rates. We advertised a real estate property tax levy at 76 per 100 of assessed value. Mobile homes were advertised at 76 per 100 of assessed value. Personal property at $255. Machinery and tools at $1.82. And aircraft at $123. Is there a motion regarding the tax rate?
I would like to make a motion that we support what we advertised.
So then your motion is to,
All the ones you just read.
gotcha. Perfect. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Yes.
Yes, okay. We'll start with Vice Chair Fijikowski. I never start with you.
I left one thing out of my argument, and that was we have hired a very competent county administrator, and she presented us with a budget. And I remember 2 years ago, I was told that we should take whatever our county administrator tells us to do. And I'm just going to remind all of you that she did not include a 1 cent in her original tax rate. That's all.
Supervisor King?
As I stated before, the emails that we got, the county administrator has got everything in the budget that it will cover without a tax increase. As I read about this family's home, you know, people say, ain't but $30. Add it up. If this goes through, that family, it will cost them in 3 years $450. We don't need to raise taxes when we got the money in the budget without a tax increase to cover what all these emails sent us. Thank you.
Supervisor Bone?
People watching, people in the audience, don't necessarily know what goes on behind these walls, the conversations that we have. What I can say is that I have not experienced us doing anything illegal, meaning one is 3 of us talking at the same time to each other. But being on this board for almost 8 years now, you hear about what's happened in the past, and when one party's in power versus the other. And I'm saying this to address Supervisor Fijikowski's comment about we should go with the county administrator's budget. I would say that part of the reason why I feel okay about it now is because we didn't then. It's evening it out. Now, is the math exactly right? I can't even speak to that. But I would love for us to approve the county administrator's budget every single year. There's no question about it. So, and then the one thing Supervisor King is talking about the $400,000+ house, the average house assessment in the county is less than that, which means that the tax increase would be less than $30 a month. So I think we all have that understanding. That's all I'm saying. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments before the vote? Okay, I would just like to take the opportunity to say that we have received an incredible number of citizen comments, phone, email, here in person. As others have pointed out, a lot of those comments came from Blacksburg. From my district, when I had addresses, I've been tracking the feedback that I have received. And with the exception of one email, my district has overwhelmingly asked for a tax increase, asked for more, which is why when we voted originally, I voted at higher rates. So it will come as no surprise that I plan on supporting the 76 per 100 this evening. Madam Clerk, if you'll call the roll, please.
Ms. Bone?
I would like to concur. My district is not the same as Supervisor DeMott's district, but it is overwhelmingly pro the increase and then some. Yes.
Mr. King?
No.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Grafsky?
Aye.
Mr. Kitts?
just want to throw this, I know we're doing this in yes and no, but I'm not big on the increase, and everybody knows that. But I do want the food program, and I know we can't dictate it, but I'd like to make sure that we do it for the summer, especially since the superintendent said that. I'm looking at you right in the eye and saying, I can't tell you this, but it would be nice to see it to make sure it goes forward. If I do this, then, so that's my big thing. So, aye.
Mr. Fitchikowski?
Well, then that makes me want to make a comment that this 1 cent is not going to go to that. That's a grant that you're going to be getting to do the summer feeding. You can just nod your head if that's true. You won't. That's on a grant, so that's different. No.
Chair DeMotts?
Aye.
Have 5 ayes, 2 no.
Okay, the next item is the resolution to adopt the fiscal year 2025-2026 budget. I'm going to read through the resolution with the tax rate of 76 cents. Be it resolved by the Board of Supervisors of Montgomery County, Virginia, that the annual budget for fiscal year 2025-2026 being the same is adopted in the amount of $270,810,181, which, except in the case of the public school budget, shall be for informative and fiscal planning purposes only. Be it further resolved, revisions to the fiscal year 2025-2026 advertised budget include the following. Total advertised funding to the school operating fund, $152,255,875. I am making an assumption in the second item. Increased county funding to the school operating fund, $1,244,860, which is the value of 1 penny on the real estate tax rate, which would lead to a total approved funding to the school operating fund of $153,500,735.
Mark shook his head at the very first number you read. Did you? The amount printed in the resolution may have been incorrect, but the total that you said for schools is correct, and the increase is correct. I think we're good.
We're good. Okay.
I just wanted to clarify that in case someone at home did math and it didn't add.
Okay, perfect. So again, that if we pass, if we take a motion in a second, that does allocate the additional penny to fund schools. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, is there any discussion?
I also support making sure that that extra penny goes to the school budget.
Okay. Madam Clerk, if you'll call the roll, please.
Mr. Fitchikowski?
No.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Grafsky?
Aye.
Ms. Bone?
Aye.
Mr. Kitts?
Aye.
Mr. King?
No.
Chair DeMotts?
Aye.
5 ayes, 2 no.
Okay, there being no other business before the board this evening, we will adjourn to our next scheduled meeting on Monday, April 28th. Thank you.